Hi, everybody. I'm so excited for today's episode because I am here with my friend and I guess colleague, since you're coming to the DogCo Summit, Jamie Trull. Jamie, thank you for coming on. I'm so excited to talk with you today.
I am stoked to be here.
So most of the people I know you because we all discovered you simultaneously through the pandemic. But just in case somebody doesn't know who you are, I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. So I'm Jamie Trull. I am a CPA by designation, although I don't always love to lead with that. So I think it gives a specific picture that is not exactly who I am, at least not anymore. So what I do now is really more financial education. So I specifically focus on business finances for self-employed people, entrepreneurs, small business owners who want to grow their business. So I love talking about all things profit and profitability. So I can talk taxes, but I'm not going to do your taxes.
Totally makes sense, because I know for myself and for a lot of my audience, the money and numbers part of business ownership wasn't really the draw of why we got into it. That kind of was the unexpected, like, I have to learn how to be proficient with this. So if it's okay, I'd love to actually start with taking us back to that window of time when many of us found you. So just to paint the scene for anybody listening that maybe has started their business after 2020, but when the pandemic hit, if you weren't a business owner, hopefully you were blissfully unaware of the business owner chaos. The whole world was in chaos, but it was a really scary time. It was a really scary time financially. Many businesses were not sure if they were going to be able to stay open, how they were going to make payroll. And around that time, many of us found you and your content going over like what was available, how to survive this window. So I just think people would love hearing a little bit about what that was like for you and what was going on for you in that window.
Yeah, it's funny now looking back, about 5 years later, right? And it feels a little bit like a fever dream. There's parts of it that it just almost doesn't feel real sometimes when you look back. I think because it was such a strange time for so many reasons. And it was interesting because of when that happened in kind of the span of my business. I had just changed over from being a virtual CFO that worked with individual small business owners to really embracing the education side of my business. So I just put out my first course. I had actually offboarded most of my clients. I kept a select few that I loved and wanted to stay working with. But my goal was to really go all in on education, teaching people how to be more profitable, to be the CFO of their own business. And so that's kind of the stage that I was in. And I remember I just finished up my first course and I just was like so excited for what was coming next. And then the whole world shut down, right? And we all have like a before and after. It's like we were so blissfully unaware of just all the change that would happen between then and now, right? And so I just look back at that version of myself who was like, launching my first course and I was so excited for where I was going. And I'm actually really thankful. One thing that I'm most thankful for is the fact that I didn't have a lot of clients during COVID, because that's actually what allowed me to really pivot towards helping small business owners through my content. So I didn't have to, a lot of accountants didn't have the luxury, right, of being able to really figure this stuff out and spend time with it and read bills and learn about all these new words, this whole new language we came up with during COVID of PPP loans and ERTC and EIDL and trying to really figure out what was going on. And by the way, it was also changing every single day, every single minute. It felt like there was something changing. They were kind of building the plane as it was flying. And so I look back, and for me, I'm very thankful that I had the space. I remember one of the stories I tell is that I had everything shut down. And the first thing that I did was, okay, I guess I'm just going to use some of this extra time that I have to do some stuff around the house. So I literally ordered all kinds of things to organize my house with. I'm like, well, if I'm going to be at home, I'm going to do some organizational projects, right? And so I ordered everything, and literally like the day everything showed up in the mail was also the day the CARES Act came out.
Wow.
I will say that organizing stuff stayed by my door for like 2 years. So I just kind of felt this calling to really help. And when you're teaching businesses how to be more profitable, and that's your main source of what you're teaching, turns out when people's businesses are shut down for various different reasons, right? They're not super interested in learning how to be more profitable. They're trying to survive. And so I really had to think about, I just kind of listened to what people were asking for. I didn't ever set out to be like, I'm going to become an expert in this. It was more I saw people asking questions about these types of issues. And then I would go out there to try to find the answers, and nobody had them. They didn't exist. Usually you can find something on YouTube, you could find something in a blog, but it didn't exist. Nobody was making that content, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. And so I just said, okay, well, I guess I'm going to do it. And that was actually the beginning of the YouTube channel. I'd been doing lives every single week in my Facebook group for a long time, but I decided to go ahead and broadcast those also on YouTube. And then I was going live every day pretty much, bringing in people who were loan brokers or people who worked for banks and trying to like understand and explain this stuff. And it was just a strange time to be alive in general. But I actually look back at it with a lot of gratitude. I think at this point, thankfully, my family, everybody that I, love got through that. Not fully unscathed, but we got through it. And I'm most grateful for the ability to help. So I think that was really the thing that struck me. It felt like almost like a divine calling. It felt like something that I was supposed to do. I didn't see my family for a while. I had a toddler and I think 6-year-old at the time. And so they didn't see a ton of me, but I felt really convicted that that was the best usage of my time and energy at that time. So it was definitely, while people were gardening, I was reading the CARES Act, but it was worth it a million times over. And I would do it all again, exactly the same way.
As someone that was glued to every Facebook Live or YouTube Live that you did, desperately trying to save my business, because I was like super targeted in on your content, like from the other side of the screen, you could feel that conviction on our end of it. I'm curious to know if you felt this way on your end. Like, it just felt like you were so committed to showing up as this like hopeful, we can figure it out presence, which like as a small business owner, we needed at the time. So thank you for the work you did, because I've told you this before, and I truly hope this is not me embellishing. Like, your content did save my business through the pandemic, and I am not the only. Okay, wait,
I know,
was not planned.
We need the tissues today.
I actually had them ready, so maybe I knew deep down.
I should learn my lesson on that.
Well, and this is why I so very much wanted you as part of the inaugural DogCo Business Summit, because you were a hero to the pet care industry during that window of time. Still are, but in that window of time, there are many, many businesses I work with that would not have made it through that.
Yeah. What's funny about it is I always try to look at things, I try to bring that hopeful perspective, because the unfortunate truth of the matter is that when it comes to content, oftentimes it's the sky is falling type stuff that gets the most clicks, right? It's the clickbait things that, the world is falling apart. Here's why it's all terrible. And I have found that even in the midst of a lot of, terrible, horrible, very bad things, we have to stay hopeful, because then what else is there? If we don't have hope, if we don't think that there's a way to get help, if we don't have, a way through this, I just remember people talking all about the light, like where is the light at the end of the tunnel? It took so long to show up during that time period. And so many people, like, of course you would give up, right? Without hope. If we're just going to live in doom and gloom and this is all terrible, we're also going to be completely just frozen in that, right? You can't take action in that kind of a state, in like a depressed, everything is horrible, pessimistic state. So I really tried to, in the midst of, acknowledging the reality of the situation, right? It isn't all rainbows and sunshine, but how do we make it through this? And how do we remember that we are resilient and we can make it through this, right? And here are the resources, both externally from the government, but also internally within ourselves that we can utilize to get through this. And I think that was a really important message. So I appreciate the fact that got through, because that was really what I was trying to do at the time.
Yeah. How was it focusing so heavily on that and having like your own business to try and figure out how to navigate through that window?
Yeah, it was interesting because I honestly, and this is truly true, I didn't worry about it. And part of that, like I wasn't focused on trying to grow revenue. Thankfully, I didn't have a team. At the time, it was just me, and I had a virtual assistant who is now my COO, and she has been with me this whole time. But I had a virtual assistant that worked for me like 5 to 10 hours a week. So I didn't have a lot of costs that I needed to cover. And, thankfully I could kind of say, I am a massive believer that things come back to you. It may not be monetarily. There's a lot of different ways that things can come back to you. But when you put good out and you truly have a real, altruistic reason for doing it, and it's not all to some kind of marketing funnel at the end of the day, right? Like, how do we monetize this? We're taught that we need to be thinking about how do we monetize this. I had no strategy, and in a lot of ways I think that was helpful because it encouraged people joined because I wasn't asking them for anything. And so it was actually very beautiful because in the midst of that I realized there was just I had done a big course that was all about like becoming your own CFO, my financial fitness formula, which and then in the midst of all the questions I was getting during COVID, I realized there's just a base foundational knowledge of finances that some business owners need and they don't have, and it's preventing them from even being able to get a hold of these loans because they don't have a profit and loss. They don't even know how to make one of those, right? So in the middle of it all, again, not a big grand plan to monetize, but I was like, I'm going to make a new course. So it was like June of 2020, and I just was like, who would be interested in like a just general basics, financial fitness basics is what I called it, course that just goes over the basics of finances and taxes and things like that for small business owners. And I had so many comments of people that were like, yes, we need that. We need that. We need that. So I made it, and I made it like super affordable. It was under like $200 or something. Right. And
I know I was in your OG launch, just so you know, I was in that group.
It was the most bananas thing I've ever seen. We sold over 800 of them in a week. No webinar, no sales funnel. I literally just posted and said, hey, this is open, and did a live. And I was like, if anybody wants to jump in, we had people literally buying it that were just like, I just want to support you in some way. Or they were buying it for somebody else. Like we gave away scholarships. We had like it was absolutely incredible, like the energy around it. And I remember just like the reflection of that. It was the first time, that was an over 6-figure launch. I had never had one of those before. And I was just completely floored and shocked. And I cried my eyes out on my porch. And that was maybe the one time like I got on live just to like say thank you and started crying. And I was like, oh no, now I'm one of those people that gets on social media and cries. I hate that. But it was very authentic. It was very how I felt in the moment. I was just blown away by the support. And I didn't feel like, you never feel like you deserve that. I'm like, I'm just doing, like, I have a skill set. I, can read this stuff. This is what I did for a job. I did technical accounting for 15 years, right? This is what I know how to do. And it didn't feel like such a big thing, but I love that I was able to make an impact without having to I think sometimes we're always like, how do I make a big impact? And we try to overanalyze it. And sometimes it's just kind of going with the flow, noticing where we're needed and just leaning into it and saying, okay, like I will show up for this. We don't have to figure it all out. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. If you're a pet care business that wants to level up, then this is for you. The DogCo Business Summit is in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, September 26th to the 28th. We still have tickets available, and we just announced that we are going digital. So you can get your in-person ticket or your digital ticket at dogcosummit.com. I remember when I got started with the work that I do now, and it was one of my very first clients. And I remember at the end of one of our first calls, she was like, by the way, I just want to make sure you know about Jamie Trull, which I was like, of course. But she was like, the reason I want to bring that up is because if there's anybody that I've seen that you should emulate when it comes to just giving, it's Jamie. Like, just the giving and the value and like just focusing on what people need. And so I think that really resonates. One thing I love about the work that you do, I think in the pandemic, we just saw a really heightened version of everything. It's like it really escalated the emotion. But what I love is that the work that you do, there's an echo of that all the time, I feel like, in small business owners of the money is scary. There tend to be either a lot of avoidant tendencies when it comes to money or a lot of anxiety when it comes to money, knowing your numbers. When it comes to like showing up to work with small business owners and their money mindsets or just the way they interact with money? How do you approach that?
I think that that's one of the unique things that I try to come at it with, because there is a lot, especially in the personal finance space, there is a lot, and it's changing, which is great. It's getting more empowering, but for a long time, it's been very shame-based, very tough love based, very get your act together, and I find that can be helpful for short-term gains, but in the long term, it actually doesn't lead to positive change. What leads to positive change is, first of all, kind of being empowered and inspired to make change and understanding why it's important. And then also understanding yourself and knowing that, we're all different people, and that's okay, right? What works for somebody, what works for me may not be what works for you from a financial perspective. And so it's about figuring out and understanding, how do we look at the world? How do we look at money? That is influenced by so much, right? Like, we think it's a one topic that it is one thing, but it's so much more than that. It goes back to how you were raised and how your parents talked about money. And there's a million different things that factor into how we feel about it, how we talk about it. And then that informs how we act about it, right? Do we avoid it? Do we love it? Do we, rely on somebody else to handle that? Do we, do we feel a lot of shame about it? All of that is something that we need to kind of understand ourselves, and then recognize, okay, maybe a budgeting technique that somebody told you about didn't work for you. And you think oh, I'm a failure, I'm never going to get good at this. No, it just wasn't the right technique for you, right? Try something else. Figure out, okay, why didn't this work? Oh, well, it was because, of this XYZ habit I have. Okay. You don't necessarily have to change that habit. You just need to figure out what works with that habit, right? So I think that's something that it is okay. People want what's the answer? What should I do? And I'm no, but there's a personalized answer. And some of it is self-reflection and understanding yourself and your actions and the things that motivate you, and then using that to create a system for money management, spending, all of that works best for you. So that's kind of the approach I like to take with everything, is we are not all the same person. I will tell you, it's harder to sell a book when they're what's the answer you give people in the book? And I'm well, the answer is, here's how to figure out what's going to work best for you and personalize the answer to you. And they're but what's the answer? People like having an answer, right? But that answer rarely works for everybody. It never works for everybody. Let's be honest. So I think there is something that I noticed when I first started teaching about money is I went straight to strategies, right? I'm here's how to be more profitable. Skipped over the entire, part that is more, money mindset is a little bit overused, but your unique feelings, beliefs, all of that about money. And I'm not a therapist. I do not jump into the why behind it all. It's just a matter of you understanding, okay, this is how I view things. Here are my strengths when it comes to money. Here is some of the weaknesses that I maybe have run into, or some of the, traps I may fall into from time to time. And then utilizing that to make a better, more fortified plan that you can stick with, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you, I'm more excited about your book if it doesn't have a clear cut.
Yeah.
It should look this way.
Yeah.
Because I found that.
I hate the word should. I hate shoulds.
I do too. I don't think it should, but be part of business or part of money management, because I really believe the beauty of entrepreneurship is building what you want in the world.
Yeah.
And that should look the way you want it to.
Exactly. And I think that's somehow when we get lost in entrepreneurship, is when we try to model somebody else or what we believe we should want or should go after, right? I mean, for years though, there was so much messaging around build a 7 or 8 figure business, and not everybody wants that. And that's okay. It is absolutely okay to not want to have 50 employees to manage and build an empire. It's really fine. You're not doing yourself a disservice. In fact, you're doing yourself a disservice by chasing a dream that's not even your own, right? What is your dream? What do you want? And then how do you make your work fit into that? So often it's the opposite. We're trying to make life fit into our work. And it's how do we make work fit into the life that we want to have? And I think when you kind of switch that mindset, it makes it a lot easier to say, okay, I can design this. I do have part of the reason we start our business. A lot of the reason is we want the control, the freedom, and then we give it up so quickly, right? In service of somebody else's idea of what we should be doing. So that is the piece that I feel strongly we have to do, that self-reflection. And it doesn't mean we can't be motivated and inspired by other people, but what is the answer for us? And it can change too, depending on the point of life you're in. What I wanted and needed 8 years ago when my daughter was born is very different than what I want and need today when they're a lot more self-sufficient and, I have kind of more time and energy. Like I wasn't sleeping 8 years ago. I couldn't conquer the world, although I tried.
Fair. Yeah, that completely makes sense to me. Are there any, obviously acknowledging everything is going to be unique, individual to specific people, but are there any themes that you see maybe small business owners struggle with more often than not?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. I think one of them, one of the things that I teach is around kind of these 8 different money personality types. And we won't get into that here, but I will be talking about it at the conference, which I'm really excited for, and going more into depth on that. But I do think that one of the things that happens is that's really, really common is kind of the avoidance. That's what I'd say is the most common. And there's different reasons. So it doesn't mean you're one specific money personality type if you avoid. There are several money personality types that avoid, but they avoid for different reasons, right? And so that's where that can be helpful. But the avoidance in general, I mean, I've even seen this too. It was interesting going through, we were just talking about COVID and all that happened with COVID. And so many people, my audience grew so quickly during COVID. It was insane, like thousands of people a week. And it was, amazing. And everybody was paying attention when we were talking about these government programs and how to get help. But then so quickly, once things kind of quote unquote became more normal, I really was like, stay around. Like there's more I have to teach you. Let's get prepared for, hopefully not the next pandemic, but there's always something coming down the road and we don't need to be in the scramble mode. And so often we avoid finances until we can't anymore. Right. And during COVID, nobody could anymore. There was nobody, I mean, maybe like a very, very small subset of people that were just completely independently wealthy. But for the most part, most business owners just couldn't avoid it anymore. So that's one of the things where it's usually not as scary. It's never as scary as we make it out to be once we actually kind of jump in there, right? And get the resources and spend some time in it. And I just encourage people to just look at your number. Like start by just looking at your numbers, right? And if you don't have them, start by getting them together in some semblance. It doesn't have to be perfect. One of the phrases I use all the time is it does not have to be perfect to be useful, right? For taxes, okay, that's a different story. You want that to be probably pretty close. But when you're trying to make business decisions or understand what's happening in your business, your profitability, how things are performing, it does not have to be perfect to be useful. You can make assumptions, and I highly encourage people to do that. But a lot of times that's one of the mistakes they make when they do kind of get out of avoidance. Then they get into overwhelm because they're like, well, I don't know the answer to all these questions. I'm trying to do a forecast for my business and I don't know how much revenue I'm going to make and I don't know how much my expenses are going to be. And it's like, no, just go with what you know and adjust from there. You know more than you probably realize that you do when you actually jump into it. Right?
Yeah.
So, it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to go take a 16-week course on finances. That's probably not the next step. The next step is probably just like pulling up your P&L, right? And like trying to kind of gather and pull up a P&L of this year versus last year, this quarter versus last quarter, and just like look at it for a little while. That's it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not so bad. Yeah.
I started offering a service last year that I'm not offering right now because it's pretty time intensive, but it's a service where companies could fly down and work with me in person for 2 days on their business.
Yes.
And I always made it a requirement that the very first thing we do together is sit down and print off your P&L and look at it together. And I'm a big data person, so I did track this metric. I have an 88% cry percentage on that session.
That is a KPI I've never heard before.
It just kept happening. So I was like,
is that good for marketing? I'm not certain.
I don't know, because I didn't make them cry. Actually, this is part 2 of the story, just so everybody knows. Typically, they were tears of relief, which I thought was really meaningful. Because I think to your point, we can build up all of these things about our numbers and how scary they are. And so, which is one reason I require we sit down and look at them together. And I always make sure to go out of my way to point out something they're doing really well. Because there's always something, nobody's like intentionally tanking their business or, whatever it may be. And I think that really speaks to what you're talking about sometimes just facing it. It's just that first step and getting further into it and just seeing what it is.
There's so much relief that comes in there. And even if there is something, right? Like the fear of the unknown is so much worse than like the actual thing. Like even if there is something bad in there, okay, let's handle it, right? Let's figure out how we fix the problem. It doesn't go away when we ostrich our head into the sand. It just gets bigger and bigger and more, and then scarier. And then we're more likely to not do it, right? I mean, that's true with so many things in life. I mean, that's true with my closet is completely unorganized and ridiculous right now. I need to bust out some of those organizational things I got during COVID and never used. But it's like, it just gets so overwhelming that it becomes scary and then I'm just like, I'm just not going to open the door, right? And so we proverbially like close it in there, don't open the door. Meanwhile, like, you know, now it's getting worse because now we're getting like moth infested in there or something, right? My analogy's gone a little off track, but you know what I mean? And I just think there's so much relief to looking at it and being like, okay, now I can like make a plan and now it's not so scary. I have a friend that avoids, like she hates her customer service inbox because for whatever reason, we always think if there's emails, they're negative, right? Like there's got to be somebody yelling at us. And so she does this where she just doesn't go in it. And like, it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy because they were all like, fine. Usually when she gets in there, it's fine. But if there is something negative, it's because they're like, well, I emailed you 2 weeks ago and you didn't email me back. See, we can kind of create the problem that we're expecting is already there. And if we just, you know, say, okay, I'm not going to close my eyes anymore. I'm going to go in eyes wide open. And it doesn't mean, I think also it's the same thing with like, you know, fitness, right? We're like, we fall off the wagon at some point and it's just like, oh, I give up now. Like I didn't have 100%. I wasn't 100%, you know, compliant with what I said I was going to do. So, you know, we do this all or nothing thing. And we have to get past that, right? Because that's just an excuse. That's just an excuse that keeps us like from having to do anything. And instead it's like, okay, nope, let's say, whoops, well, you know, I missed last month. Let's get back to it this month and put an extra hour on the calendar because it's going to take me a little bit longer, right? We just shame and blame ourselves so much. And that does not inspire like actual action that will help the situation.
When I was facing a lot of my own money fears, and I was like, I have to face this. I had a phrase I would tell myself, which was, I can't fix it if I don't see it.
Yes.
And that is like step one. And that was really helpful. This probably, well, I don't know, actually, I'd be curious your thoughts on this practice because I could see this going to a bad direction, but to help me get over that, I actually went through a season where I would check my P&L and my bank account first thing every day just to try and like get myself used to like, it is not scary. I can look at this and it's okay.
Well, I would put that in the camp of do what works for you, right? If that worked for you and that was helpful for you, absolutely keep doing it. And there may be people that they're like, okay, that'd be helpful for me. For some people that might not be, it might be, you know, like absolutely terrifying. But I always say like at least weekly, like the first thing that I do every week is I have a little spreadsheet where I track my cash flow. And that's just to make sure that I know what's coming and I feel more prepared. And I look at it and I'm like, okay, how much money do I expect to make this week, the next couple of weeks? How much money do I expect to go out? And it's all analog. It's just an Excel sheet. But it really helps alleviate that fear of like, am I going to run out of cash? And I also know like, okay, you know, I need to wait until next week to pay this bill, which is fine because it's not due until the end of the month, right? So you can actually make decisions based on seeing that information in front of you. So I do that every Monday. I go in and I update my current cash balance. I do it for my personal life as well. So that actually is a new thing that I just started doing like a year ago, and it's been really helpful. So I go in and I do it for my business and then I do it for my personal life. It takes like 30 minutes now. It really doesn't take long. But I feel so much better walking into the week being like, okay, I'm good. Or if I'm like, oh, there's an issue here, I can move some things around ahead of time where I'm not running into, oh, my credit card didn't auto pay because I didn't have enough cash in there. Or, I don't have enough cash to pay my team and I need to figure out how to move some money and spend a bunch of money to transfer it super quickly, right? So it's just that it can, like paying attention to it in whatever cadence works for you. But I do like the idea of like just every day open it up, see what it looks like, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I got really into the idea of like, because it was a big thing for me, especially coming out of the pandemic where it was like, it just felt so survival driven that coming out of that season, I was like, okay, I have to figure out a different relationship to the finances in my business because we made it through, but that's not how I want to exist relationally. Mm-hmm. So I got really into the idea of how could I gamify this in a way to make it just fun. And I know this makes me sound like a weirdo, but I love paying my credit card bill now because I just love like checking it and seeing it. And I probably drive my bookkeeper crazy. We've talked about this because like I give myself a money win every day. Like I have a travel account, and even if I'm just moving, I'm so sorry, Shannon, but even if I'm just moving like $4, I just always make sure I like give myself a money win,
I
and
love that.
it's
See,
good for
I
me.
think that's amazing. Like, I absolutely love that. I know people that like literally pay their credit card every day or every week because they just like the feeling of, okay, I'm really using this as cash. And if that's what helps you feel like you're closer to it, you can trust yourself more with it. You can make it kind of a game, like a win, like, hey, look at me. Absolutely. Again, that goes with like setting up something that works for you and recognizing that. And and don't be afraid to change too. So that's the thing. I think some people, they're like, something can work for a long time, and then all of a sudden it stops working. And they're like, what's wrong with me? What have I done? No, just it's time to, we need to freshen things up. Like, we need to kind of keep it live. And so, okay, what can we change? Maybe now it's time to start something new and different that kind of keeps you more engaged and excited again. So I think that's the other thing is it's not like there's not a pass fail here, right? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I recognize this is getting kind of old. I'm avoiding it for some reason. What can I do to make this more interesting and exciting for me now? Like, what can I kind of put in front? And again, using your personality type to figure that out is really helpful.
Yeah. So speaking of maybe not necessarily specifically the money personality type, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your book, a little bit about
Yeah.
when that is fully coming out.
Yes. So that's kind of been like this weird, also for full circle thing. I had talked to somebody who was in the book publishing world in 2020, and she wanted to help me write my proposal then. And I said, I absolutely cannot. I have no time for any of that. It sounds amazing. I want to have a book someday, but like I am working a bajillion hours a week and not sleeping and barely seeing my family. So it's not going to be right now. And she checked with me like every single year.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was at the end of 2022. She just sent me an email that said, is 2023 the year? And that was all it said. And at that time, I had finally gotten a team under me. We had gotten processes in place. Like I actually had, a little bit more of that balance that I had been looking for when I started the business. Right.
Mm.
And I was like, you know what? I actually think I can. I think I can do this. 2023, I kicked off. I didn't know the book proposal writing process was going to be what it was, but it's like a 90-page book proposal. It's a whole serious thing because I decided I wanted to go like the regular publishing route and at least try that. And if it didn't work, I was fine to self-publish, but I kind of wanted to see what that world was like. So I did the full thing through 2023, then shopped around for agents. Then, I got my book deal in early 2024 and spent about 6-8 months like writing the whole thing, which is pretty quick. And now Hidden Profit is finally coming out 3 years after I said yes to doing it. Hidden Profit is coming out in October of 2025. It feels like a little surreal. I have like the advanced reader copy. Anybody who's watching, I'll hold it up. But this is my advanced reader copy, which is crazy to hold in my hands. A book that I actually wrote. I'm just so excited. It's really, the book it's not just all kind of figuring out yourself, but there is a lot of it around kind of money personalities and figuring out a system that works for you. But there's a ton of strategies too. Like, how do we pull different levers in our business to help us make more profit? And then what do we do with that profit, right? To help us find abundance to, meet the goals that we have in our actual life, right? So it's really aligning, like, this isn't just a boring business finance book. Yes, we do talk about how to read a P&L. We do talk about profit margins, but we also talk about the softer side of things and the more exciting and inspiring side of things as well. So all of that is part of what we do.
I love it. Well, I already have my copy ordered. I cannot wait to read it. I know it's going to be amazing.
Thanks. And I'd love anybody who wants to grab one, definitely grab one. We've got some bonuses too. So we're really excited to get this out in the world.
Yeah, we'll make sure that the link to do that is in this episode for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jamie. I know this is going to be a real treat and I'm so excited. So maybe just a 2-second, just like snapshot of the summit. For anyone who hasn't bought a ticket yet, Jamie is our keynote. I'm so excited. So she will be actually doing 2 sessions, one where she's giving a presentation and then one where she and I are doing a coffee hour that'll be kind of like this, but a little bit more crowdsourced for questions that people in the audience have. So Jamie, thank you so much for participating. I'm so excited to have you as part of it.
I'm so pumped about this, and I'm excited to talk about something. I mean, we're going to be talking about the money personality type. So you guys are going to get to take a quiz, figure out what you are. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into each of them. So when I talk about creating something that works for you, you're going to be able to actually see your own results and to really think about it and make an action plan based on your own personality. And also understand that like you're not alone. We're going to be in a room where you will not be the only person who sees money in that way. That's another thing that I love about it is that, you know, you get to see, we all sometimes think like we are the only one that does this or we're the only one that acts like this. And the beauty of kind of delving farther into this is you can see that's not true. There's plenty of people just like you out there. And there are ways that you can use you don't need to change your money personality type. You just need to lean into your strengths. And those are your money superpowers. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how to tap into your specific money superpowers. I promise you have them.
I'm so excited. That's going to be amazing.
Yes. Yep. And I'm excited for our coffee chat too. I want all the questions. Come with all the questions. We're going to chat and answer all the burning business finance questions you've got.
I know they'll come ready. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jamie. And we will catch you on the next episode.